Oonagh O Hagan. And for anyone that doesn't know Oonagh, she is the owner managing director of Meaghers Pharmacy. She is an entrepreneur at heart. She sits on a lot of boards and she's involved in a lot of various companies and organizations. And I'm going to get her to talk a little bit around that. And retail excellence is another one she's part of. She's really leading the way in pharmacy and how we look at that, I suppose, as a business. I've a retail background myself, and I love the aspect that Oonagh takes with her pharmacies and how she puts her employees first and definitely customer service at the forefront of everything she does. So big thank you for coming on this morning. I really appreciate it.
No problem at all. Pleasure. Thank you for the invite on. Yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. So for anyone out there that is living under a rock or maybe doesn't know about Oonagh or Meaghers Pharmacy, tell me kind of where that kind of came from or a little bit about it.
Okay, well, listen, I'm a pharmacist by profession and come from the north of Ireland, from Tyrone, and came to Dublin to the big smoke after college, or after I did my A-levels. And I always wanted to come to Dublin because I had two aunts in Dublin and used to spend the summers down looking after their kids. So always wanted to come to Dublin, used to take them in, the kids in around Trinity at the time, just or to the zoo or to different places, whatever, and just loved the whole feel of Trinity. So I wanted to come to Dublin, wanted to go to Trinity. Knew I was going to do something science because I did science A-levels, whatever. Applied to do medicine, got the points to do medicine, but changed at the very last minute because I have this fear of needles. So when Trinity phoned just to confirm I was definitely taking the place in medicine, I actually said, no, actually, can you change me into pharmacy? So I was never planning to do pharmacy at all until that moment. But I did. I actually think it's a better mix for me because it's a mix of between business and and science. So I ended up doing pharmacy. 4 years it was at that time, and then I did my at that time you had to do 4 years in college and then a year under the guidance of a tutor, and my tutor, I happened to be living on Bagot Street at the time in student accommodation with 3 other girls from the north, and Mars on Bagot Street was my local pharmacy. I used to pop in like for my bits, my tweezers and my fake tan and stuff like that. And I asked Pierce one day, I suppose built up the relationship with Pierce just from popping in. And one day I asked him, would he be my tutor? Because we were sent out, I think in 3rd year, to find a tutor pharmacist or whatever. So he said yes. And it was really awkward. It felt like I was asking, a 60-year-old out on a date, to be honest with you. But I did my intern year with him then, and he was my tutor, and he taught me everything there is to know about pharmacy, because in college you learn the academics, you learn about the drugs and so on and so forth, but you don't get that interaction with people. And he had done phenomenal work within the community. It had been his mum's pharmacy before. It was a family business. They grew up in the pharmacy, they lived above the pharmacy, so very much within the community. And that's what I loved about it, and that's what attracted me to it. So I had the most wonderful year with him, never wanted to leave. My last day, begged him to keep me on. He was pushing me out the door and said, no, you have to go, you have to fly your wings or whatever. And I asked him the question that I always wanted to ask him for the whole year, which was, if you're ever selling this pharmacy, would you let me know? And he told me, yes, he would let me know, just to get me out the door and stop me crying. And 4 years later, I got that call from him to say he was selling, and he remembered the promise and he wanted to tell me. And sure, I got off the phone thinking, oh my God, this pharmacy is going to be mine, having not a penny in the bank. But the absolute determination that I was going to raise the funds somehow. And that's it. I went and seen a number of different banks and whatnot, got lots of no's before I got a yes, and was able to raise the finance to buy the pharmacy. So at that stage, I was in my early 20s. Didn't have really, I don't know, when I look back at it now, I was kind of like, because it was 2 million punts at the time, so it was a hell of a lot of money, and I had no funds, but I had no fear, I guess, and because I just knew it was going to work. And so then I bought the business from him, and from then, that was back in 2001, we have gone on to open 9 pharmacies in total now, and we set up the online store back in 2014 on the back of talking to our customers and what it was that they were looking for at that time, and thank God we did, because clearly, online throughout this pandemic has been absolutely a huge part of the business, and also a way to keep our people safe and our customers safe as well. So to look after our customers in a different way. So we now, at this minute in time, we have 9 pharmacies, all Dublin based. We always have stuck in Dublin. We probably need to get outside of the pale now at this stage and get into, otherwise, but we look after customers all the length and breadth of Ireland. And actually we ship to 58 different countries all over the world now. So there's people in, I don't know, Argentina and Australia and Dubai getting packages every single week from us. So it's brilliant. It's gone on, and listen, we've been able to, I suppose, throughout the pandemic as well, digitize a lot of the services that we would normally provide in person through our digital platforms, because we had to do that. There was no other way to look after our customers. So that's who we are. We have probably 150 people working for us, maybe 160 people working for us today. So growing from that one pharmacy to where we're at today, it's been a journey. Let's say it's been a roller coaster. Yeah, it's been a roller coaster.
We have, I suppose, just listening to what you said there, and I would work with a lot of retailers, a lot of small ones, and they're looking like you were to expand. So they have that one store and they're looking to expand their store portfolio. And it is a big jump going from having that one store where you do have all that control and that autonomy of the business, and expanding that out. Can you talk to me about kind of how that kind of, what you need to put in place, or how that kind of happened? Because there is, we all know we want to keep that customer service really well. We want to keep it very much, when we go out, when we expand the business, that's where we can have those issues that we didn't see before. Can you talk me through that a little bit of how that kind of happened, or advice you might give to someone that is expanding and open more than one store?
Yeah, I think for me, it's all about, well, 2 things: people. First and foremost, having people in place that act, or treat the business almost as if it's their own. Because if you're going to expand and you're going to, I remember the day that I moved over to Ranelagh when we opened our second store. It was like leaving Bagot Street, like my baby behind, and I needed to have the right people in place there that would run the business just as if I was there, and they, treat it as if it was their own, and really care about it. Really, it comes down to that whole caring for the business, like you would do. So, and I was very lucky that I did have that, and that enabled me to take that next step. And then the second thing, I think it's about processes. Whenever you start off, you do everything. You're the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. You're wearing all of the hats or whatever. But if you are going to grow and to scale, you need to have a very engaged, high trust team that treat the business as if it's their own, and you need to have processes, because whenever you're not there, they need to be able to understand, well, what way to act or to do, if you're not there, as if you were there. So it is about processes. And as you grow and as you scale, and where we're at today, processes are so important to have that kind of structure in place. But at the same time, you don't want to make it that there's an SOP for absolutely everything and everybody's turned into robots. I just can't stand that. We're always trying to get our people to make the right decision for the customer, and to feel empowered to do that, and do it their own way, but to stay within, some sort of parameters, because that's what keeps that sort of family culture, that customer care, like very natural and very alive, I guess. But at the same time, there are structures and some level of processes to the whole thing. So it's really about people, and it's about processes, and keeping that culture alive is so important.
There's a big thing around culture, I think, and looking at that, and looking at, I suppose, at a lot of businesses that I would have worked with, it's actually trying to cultivate an entrepreneurial spirit within your leadership team and your business. And going back to what you said there, it's that caring, and that actually imagining it as if it's their own business. Can you talk me through, if there's anyone listening, because I've obviously worked in a lot of different organizations. You have the ones that are, as you touched on there, there's a policy for everything. If you open the back door, there's a sign off for the back. There's a lot of kind of, we can go into overdrive, and it's finding that happy medium and that balance. Is there anything that you're doing in particular that is cultivating that culture within your business? That's I suppose allowing people to obviously staying within the remit of what they're meant to do, but is allowing them to have their own entrepreneurial spirit almost, and is supporting that culture and supporting you in growing your business.
Yeah, well, I think the thing that we do, and probably the foundation to everything that we do, is that we have 6 core values in our business, so 6 core principles, and we do everything around that. So we recruit around that, we train around that, we manage performance around that. They are the behaviors within our business, and it's not just that they're on a sheet of paper and they're up on a wall somewhere. Like, we eat, breathe, and sleep those values, and that is the bedrock, I suppose, of building a high trust culture within the business, and a culture where people have the freedom to be themselves and to show up and to bring the best of themselves to work, and a different, I suppose, set of abilities than maybe what I have or what somebody else has. So be themselves, but also to have some sort of parameters that people know this is the way we behave around here, because this is the bedrock of what this business is about. This is the heartbeat of it. And as long as we don't stray away from that, and as long as we have people aligned to those values, then we have that diversity, but we have the core principles in place. And for me, that's what it's about. It's about recruiting people on our bus, going the same direction, who want to be on our bus, who want to go to the same place, if you know what I mean, like and they're sitting on a seat, but they're very individual people, but at the same, there is a connecting thread between everybody, if that makes sense. There's a golden thread that connects us, and it is back to those 6 key values. And listen, at this minute in time, there's a real fight for talent. There's a huge problem in getting people, but still we will not recruit someone who doesn't display those 6 values, despite the fact that that we have lots of positions open and available at the minute. There's no point bringing in somebody who doesn't display those values, because that's when it goes wrong. So for us, it is about customer first, people who will go the length and breadth and above and beyond for our customers, to solve their problems. It is about community. We want people who want to make a positive impact in our communities, be that our communities around our stores, or be that from a digital point of view, our online community. We want people to display a quest for knowledge and want to be an expert. So constantly learning, constantly developing, a curious mind, always want to get, know more and be better at what they're doing. We want people who have a strong family ethos, so that, and that doesn't mean to say that we're all happy, clappy, and we all act, as some sort of dysfunctional family or anything. It's about actually recognizing, that we're all very different and we support each other, and, somebody like, for example, I'm so bad at IT, like Louise, and my team know that, but they'll support me in that, because they'll know, okay, Oonagh can't do a PowerPoint presentation. I'll do that for her and she'll do something else for me. So we recognize everybody's strengths and weaknesses within the business. We have a real quest for, as I said, not only expertise, but actually doing things better. So pushing boundaries. So we want people who will come on board, who want to do things better within the community, want to do things better within the pharmacy profession, want to push the boundaries and improve the industry. So that innovation is really important to us. And lastly, we want people who are incredibly positive. And that's the kind of golden thing that people always say to us about our team in Meaghers. How do you recruit somebody, a whole team that are all positive? And it's not been happy, clappy, and we're all going around with big smiles on our face. It's more that we look at, no matter what comes ahead of us, what's the opportunity in this? How do we solve this problem? So always looking for an opportunity in a crisis. And I can tell you in the last 2 years, that has absolutely stood to us. So those are the core principles that we are looking for. Those are the things that we look for in people who turn up for interviews. Those are the things that we interview on, recruit on, performance manage, because those are the behaviors that we're displaying. So people can be amazing at what they do, but if they don't display those behaviors, if they don't support each other, if they don't approach challenges with a positive mindset, then they're really not, they're not going to really fit with us. And so those are, and that builds our culture. Those 6 key principles build our culture, and that's the thing that makes us very different. And so, like when my team, when a customer walks into Bagot Street and they've got an issue, as long as they know that if I can solve this customer's problem, because actually our core principle is customer first, they don't have to say, well, I'll have to phone somebody in head office and I'll come back to you next week. We don't want any of that. We want our team to feel empowered, that they have the bandwidth to solve the customer problem, because that's who we are. And nobody's going to ever get into any sort of trouble, as long as they act for, we're here to actually put our customer first, then that's it. And that gives you the flexibility, I suppose, within your culture to be who you want to be and to show up and to solve these problems. But it also means that we still have those, I suppose, key principles or key values, those core values that connect us all. And it is about keeping that alive. So, and that's my job in all of this, to make sure that I am, talking about these key values, talking about where we're going, talking about our strategy to my team, and that infiltrates all the way throughout the business. And that's the kind of stuff that we've been recognized for, in Great Places to Work, because that's what builds a high culture environment. And the last 3 years we've been recognized as one of the best places to work here in Ireland, and we've made the top 30 the last 2 years. And that's what it's about. It is about culture. And years ago, whenever I set up a business, there was not much talk about culture. There was not much talk about, or it was something, on a shiny kind of poster or whatever in on a boardroom, but it was never really, you couldn't feel it in an organization. But you can feel that in our organization. There's no question about that. And when I go around the stores, I can feel it in the air. I can see it. I can see it in the interactions with our customers. I can see it in our interactions with our team members to each other. So that's what it's about. That's the magic.
And I love hearing that. And you can get that. I always say to people, when you walk onto a shop floor, it doesn't matter what retailer it is, you get an energy, you get a feeling. And I always say, if you go into any of these chain stores, and you might be in one in Galway or Limerick or Cork, when you walk into that store, it's the actual personality of the manager that actually starts that whole atmosphere within the business. And you get the feel when you walk in that door, whether you want to stay for 5 minutes or you want to get out the door within 5 seconds. So
it's a feeling in the air, and it takes years and years to build. And and if you don't have the right people on the team, it can be damaged really quickly. That's why it's so important to keep it alive and to always be talking about it, and to performance manage people on it, because it's actually about the behaviors that they display. So you can't create it overnight. It takes a lot of hard work, but that is the magic, because as you say, you can feel it when you walk through a door, and it's a difference. And it's the thing that will attract people to your business. It is the thing that will retain people to your business, particularly in this environment that we're in now. And it's the thing that then feeds out to your customers, so your customers feel it. And that's the thing that makes them want to do business with you, because at the end of the day, business is all about people, and people do business with people that they like, with businesses that they like, that have a heartbeat, really. And it's the thing that will get people to cross the road in Bagot Street and come to us rather than going to a competitor. It's about people. At the end of the day, it all comes back to people. So, but it takes a lot of work to get it the way that you want it, and it takes a lot of work to keep it alive, particularly when you grow in scale, because the more and more people that you add to the business and that you recruit, it takes a lot of work to onboard them, to get them to understand, to train them the way that and then just to keep it alive.
Yeah. Engagement seems to be a big thing. And we see all the surveys out there that so many of us go to work, and there's probably maybe, a small percentage of the day where we're actually engaged in the workplace, and then we're not engaged in the workplace. Is there any initiatives that you're doing in your business to keep that engagement going with the team, to keep them, I suppose, excited in their job role? Because I know from working with people, it can be some tasks are quite mundane, and I would be quite vocal about that now where I worked. It is, some things are boring but they have to get done, but then we might look at ways to maybe get them involved in projects in different areas of the business, because maybe they have an interest in HR. You might get them involved in a new HR initiative or whatever that might be. Is there anything that you're doing there, maybe the people are listening in on, that they could go, with all these amazing things that you've gotten to a great place to work, that you've taken some learning from it and said, you know what, we're going to implement that in the business. I've heard what the team have given me as feedback, and you've really seen a win come out of the back of that?
Yeah, well, we have a process again, Louise, for engagement check-ins. So our teams, everybody within the business would have an engagement check-in at least once a quarter, right? And that process is it's really, really simple. 4 questions, what's going well, what's not going so well. Have you got everything you need to do your job, and who do you want me to thank on your behalf? And that's really important, that last question, for the recognition of other team members. But usually what's going well and what's not going so well will give us loads of ideas. Okay, so things that need to be improved within the business, or things that are going really well, maybe in one particular store or online or whatever, that gives us ideas of there's a little golden nugget in that, and from that, all of that information is collated and brought back to our HR department, and we'll analyze that and we'll see actually what else is in that. Now, for example, throughout the pandemic, loads of ideas came through that process. For example, what was not going so well at that time was our customers were missing our pharmacist team members, because they were getting their medicines when everybody was, say, cocooning, but they couldn't speak to our team members. And so there was a real loneliness around for our customers. And they didn't know how to take their medicines effectively, because it might have been put on a new medicine, but because they weren't having any face-to-face interactions with our team members, that was missing. So that was apparent on coming out of that engagement check-in process all of the time, throughout the pandemic. And so on the back of that, the solution to that, and it came from our teams, was let's do this digitally. And that's when we set up the first ever online digital pharmacist here in Ireland, where a customer could click on their mobile phone, be at home, and talk to our pharmacist online. And our pharmacist could say, here you go now, Louise, you've just been put on this inhaler. This is how you use it. And look at these little tablets. They're red. You take 6 today, 5 tomorrow, whatever. And it meant that our customers could, first of all, get the important information about their medicines and how to take them appropriately. But second of all, it was back to connecting people again, because that's why a lot of people come in to talk to our pharmacists. And it's more about, not necessarily just about the tablets, but actually just finding out how they're doing in that. So it was hugely beneficial from the point of view of actually solving not only the compliance piece and the medication piece, but actually the loneliness piece, particularly our elderly population as well. So that was something that came out of that engagement check-in, which actually kicked us forward in terms of innovation, and from that led then, we launched an online doctor service. We've launched now, we're about to launch an online physio service. Who would have thought that you would be able to see a pelvic floor specialist online? We're launching an online podiatry service or whatever. And that all of this has happened as a result of just those kind of engagement check-ins. What's not going so well? Well, listen, we're supposed to be always looking after the customer. Here's what the customer is saying. How can we solve this problem for them? So I think having a process for engagement is a key thing. And then, once your team give you the information, to do something with it, to analyze that information, and not just say, okay, well, that's a tick box exercise, let's stick that in the drawer until the next 6 months. It's actually what is coming out of that process, where's the little golden nuggets of information, and to do something with it, to listen to them, actively listen to them. And also at that time, myself, our superintendent pharmacist, and our head of retail went around every single store throughout the pandemic, and we had a team meeting at nighttime when the store was closed with everybody in the store to find out. It was almost like the same process, what's going well for the entire team, or for that particular community, and what could be solved. There was loads that came out of those as well. But again, that takes time, that takes commitment, that takes effort, whatever. But boy, was that worthwhile. So many new innovations came out of that process. But again, it's about asking, it's about listening, and it's about actually acting on some of that. You can't do everything. We wouldn't be able to do everything. But it's like, okay, well, if the same thing is coming out of 3 or 4 stores, there's something in that, because that's a problem. That's a problem for our customers. That's a problem for our teams. What are we going to do about it?
Yeah, that's fantastic. And it's great to see that actionable things can come out, because we see a lot of the time we do surveys, or there's certain things done in the business, but sometimes that follow-up piece can get a little bit not forgotten about, but it can be moved down on that priority list. So it's really interesting to hear your take on that. Talking around vision, and you talked about that earlier, that my role in the business, the organization, is that kind of visionary piece. And I can imagine when you're on the shop floor, the team are listening to you, and when you do your visits or your site visits, that they're going, okay, what direction are we going in? How has the vision changed, I suppose? We know with COVID, everything was fast forward, but what is your vision going forward, I suppose, for Meaghers Pharmacy? Where do you see the kind of the next year, I suppose, to 18 months in the business?
Yeah. Well, I suppose I think that what the pandemic has shown us is that, well, first of all, it's reprioritized healthcare in general. I think everybody has, out of the pandemic, they've realized actually material things don't really matter. Yes, they're nice to have, but actually what matters is my health, the health of my families, the health of my parents. So healthcare in itself has completely been reprioritized. But the second big, huge thing that has actually happened is that preventative care. Not waiting until you get sick, but actually doing all you can in order to stay well. And we've been championing this in Meaghers since, I'd say, back in 2006, when we were started working and doing a lot of screening. But we've really pushed that forward now. So what we've discovered is really, patients fall into either one of two categories. They either have a chronic illness and they want to be able to manage that better. So it's really about having services that provide solutions for them within a community setting, because now the accessibility into hospitals or even GPs throughout the whole pandemic, there was, whatever was the waiting list before, you may add an extra 6 months onto that. Whereas here we're in the community, we're accessible. 9 out of 10 times the service is pretty much free or very low cost. We know the patients really, really well. They can come into us. They feel comfortable coming into us because they know us, whatever. We're there to deliver that service now. So there's lots of services that we would be doing for, say, for example, diabetics or patients who have, heart conditions or blood pressure conditions, whatever, that now we have absolutely stepped that forward. So if I look at, say, for example, our diabetic patients before the pandemic, they would have been coming into us on a regular basis to maybe get their blood sugars done. Now we're providing so much more than that, not only blood sugars and HbA1c testing, but we're now have teamed up with the team out of Liver Wellness in St James's Hospital, Professor Suzanne Norris, and we're now screening them for liver disease as well. Now that's a service that is the first ever in Europe to be delivered in a pharmacy setting, but it was purely born out of, well, they couldn't get into the hospital throughout the pandemic. They still needed to get their liver checked because there's a silent epidemic amongst type 2 diabetics called non-alcohol fatty liver disease. They couldn't get in to see Professor Norris. She couldn't get to see them. So here was us in the middle where we could provide that service. So things like that, where we have taken the service out of the hospital or possibly away from GPs in order to support them so that they could get on with, I suppose, the more serious aspects of their care throughout the pandemic. And we've been able to deliver that in a community setting. So that's one cohort in terms of chronic illness. Then you have people who don't have a chronic illness, but they are concerned about their health because maybe they have a genetic disposition to something, or their mum or their dad had something, and they want to make sure that they don't develop that illness, be that diabetes, be that a heart condition, whatever. And we're there to provide screening services to make sure that if they do have something, it's caught early. So pharmacy is moving, and I guess what has changed in terms of our vision is really pushing that forward now in terms of, we're a one-stop shop where we can provide these services to our customers either in a preventative session or in a setting where they have a chronic illness, but we're helping them manage it better, all under one roof. And if we don't have the expertise to provide that service, then we will partner with people who has that expertise and we'll bring them under our roof so that the patient doesn't have to travel to here for one thing, here for another thing, they can just come to Meaghers and everything can be done for them because it's much more accessible to them and they know our teams. So it's really about elevating those pharmacy services. So pre-pandemic, I guess patients would have seen a pharmacy as a place to come to for their medicines, collect their prescription medicines. Now, today, in our pharmacies, there is somebody constantly in the consultation room. They might be getting, I don't know, a COVID vaccine. They might be getting a screening done. They might be getting an antigen test for a fly as you go. They might be getting a 24-hour blood pressure monitor attached. All of these things that we would never have been doing pre-pandemic, we're doing today. And that's what it is about. It's about much more service-led services so that we're a one-stop shop for patients within the community.
So listening to you there's a lot obviously you're doing with partnering with doctors on some different things, and it seems that the pharmacy has it seems like it's moved from I'm going to come in and get my bits to I'm actually going to come in and spend a longer time in your pharmacies now than what they probably normally would have before. It might have been an in and out piece where that dwell time is a lot longer now in the business. So they're in there for a lot longer. We have a big thing in retail around experiential, and you'll probably hear about this. You've already heard about it loads, where you want the customer to come in and have an experience, and I can see that you're already creating that and on a needs basis for your customers coming through the door. If there was one thing that you could say, just one thing that you could tick off a wish list or tick off a piece for somebody to do to make that magic happen in their business, what would it be?
In terms of experiential?
Yeah.
Well, I think that a customer experience in a store is like a three-legged stool. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we talk about this in our business a lot, where it's the three P's. It's about the product, it's about the people, and it's about the place. Yeah. You can have the fanciest product, beautiful settings, but if you don't have good customer service, good people, then it falls over. Or you can have the most beautiful gleaming shop. Yeah. And the product mix could be wrong, or again, you just don't have the right people, that falls over. Or you could have an awful looking store and it's dirty and it's not, the standards are really poor, but you could have fantastic people, but the product mix is not right. So you've got to concentrate on those three P's. Have the right product in the right place, like good standards that talk to the customer so that they understand, what the product actually does, with the right people. That people who, number one, have the expertise to deliver that service, but be it a service or know about the product, but actually just be able to talk to people as well. So, have really good communication skills, not a hard sell. We're here to find out, at the end of the day, we're here to provide solutions to our customers. So we need to figure out why they're coming through our door in the first place. They're coming through, they're not coming in having a wander around. 9 out of 10 people coming into a pharmacy are coming in for a reason. They're either A, not well themselves, or B, there's somebody in their family not well, or maybe they are coming in, the odd person coming in for a lipstick and a brows, whatever. So we need to be able to identify why they're coming through the door in the first place. And so that is actually just interacting with customers and asking them questions. So we need to have the right people with those skills that can have those interpersonal conversations and can recognize the difference between customers, because some customer runs in the door, they're in a rush, they just want to pick up something and go, they don't want to have the chats, whereas other people come in because maybe we're going to be the only person they'll talk to in the day. And it's being able to recognize that and have that emotional intelligence to know what does that customer want, and then to dissect, I suppose, get from the customer, what solutions are they looking for? What's their problem? So if they're coming in for a skincare cream, to be able to ask the right questions to find out what's their skincare concern, because 9 out of 10 customers actually don't even know what they need when it comes to skincare. They don't even know if their skin is dry or dehydrated. What's the difference between the two? They don't know, so they don't know the issue. So we need to have our teams with that right expertise to find out the information so that they can provide the solution for the customer in the first place. And then we have to obviously have the products on the shelf to provide that solution. And then we have to have the standards in the store, looking so well that it's inviting. So a little bit of theatre, and it can be as simple as displays. It can be as simple as co-merchandising products with, so if this beautiful sunny day here in Dublin today. So, having out hay fever products along with SPF, along with it, so that you can see actually this is what I might need for the weekend all together, as opposed to products all over the shop or whatever, So it's about just creating that theatre. And, sampling, we do a lot of sampling. We have a lot of our reps or experts or even people who have created a brand coming into the store to tell their story in our store, because customers love to hear the brand story behind certain products as well. So it's just doing things a little bit differently than maybe some of our competitors would do, because we're not like a supermarket model, Louise. We're not that sort of cold feeling. We don't want that feeling in our stores. We want you to come in. We're very much customer service led, so that requires interaction, and to have interaction you've got to have the right people. It's back to people again.
Yeah, I love that, and can totally relate with that. I've worked with a few brands, and the brand story and the brand story around products is so important, I think, and sometimes it's underestimated how much people actually buy into that story of a product, and meeting the maker and getting to know them on a personal level, and letting that story travel really does make a huge impact on a product-based business and on a lot of businesses as well. Thank you so much today, Oonagh. I've had a great chat with you, and you've given really great nuggets there. And if I could just summarize, we're talking about culture today, which is a really big one. Your brand values, which plays a big role in your business, from your onboarding to your recruitment to your performance management to how you oversee areas of your business, and have that metric in it, to support building that culture in the business seems to be very important, which is great to hear. I love hearing values. As a coach, values are very important, and in a business as well, you can see that rang through. The personal piece as well is something I've heard you come back with a lot, and having that personal touch, not just with your team, but the way your team actually interact with your customers, and obviously having that trickle down from yourself all the way down to the shop floor. It's fantastic to hear. Thank you so much for your time this morning. I super appreciate it, and it's been amazing listening and talking to you this morning.
No problem at all. Pleasure.
Pleasure.
Thanks a million. Thanks for the invite on.